I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Elsbeth, showrunner and executive producer Jonathan Tolins. Jonathan, I want to be on the record that I have been a fan of Carrie Preston as Elsbeth Tassioni since the very beginning. I was there at the start, loving that character. I told Carrie, you're going to win an Emmy one day, and she did. So, how long has this idea been percolating to give Elsbeth the show that she deserves?
Well, I think when they first conceived of the character, Robert and Michelle King described her to Carrie as like a Columbo kind of character. And there was talk, I think, over the years of doing some kind of spin-off for the character. And then during the pandemic, Robert and Michelle started watching Columbo. And it came together. And even before that, I think Elizabeth Vincentelli in the New York Times, I think during the pandemic, wrote an article saying we need a new Columbo, or it should just be Elspeth Tassioni. So it's sort of an idea that felt so natural, it kind of became inevitable.
Yeah. I love it how in the show there's always the jokes about her name, and yes, that is my actual name and all that kind of thing. That makes me laugh because it is a bit of a tongue twister. Let's be honest. So what is it about this show that sets it apart from other series in the detective drama genre? Because it's been a staple in American television for decades. So how does this show set itself apart from others?
I think it's the tone. I mean, yes, there have been shows with quirky detectives and in the past. I mean, this is certainly a descendant of Columbo and Monk and it's contemporary of Poker Face. But I think that the character of Elsbeth is unique. She brings a particular enthusiasm and kindness to every scene she's in, and plopping that character down in the middle of what feels otherwise like a standard CBS procedural just has something kind of kicky and fun about it that is we're having a good time with.
Yeah, it looks like you're having a really good time. I think Carrie Preston is definitely having a great time. I've always wondered about this character. Is there scope for Carrie to ever go off script? Or is this very, very strictly scripted show? Like, or is it somewhere in between?
It's very scripted, not because we don't trust our actors and think they're brilliant. It's just that when you have, just under 43 minutes to plot a murder mystery with complex clues, you don't have a lot of room. I mean, there will be things that come up, and there's a little bit of freedom on set. And usually at the ends of scenes, things, something might come up. But I'm very fortunate in that I have three regulars who like the scripts and make the most of them. And if there is an issue or a question they have, we're able to, we have a great communication, before we get into production. But no,
Because
it's not an improv.
it's
This
not an
is,
improv.
yeah.
Definitely not. It makes a lot of sense, actually. There's a lot to get through for each episode. We need to be taken on this journey about the how catch 'em as opposed to the who done it.
Yeah.
But I still wonder, for every inflection that Carrie does as Elspeth, for every hand movement, and she's just so demonstrative when she's doing her thing, that the magic that is Elspeth Tassioni. How hard is that to write for, to make a provision for that in the script as well as the narrative?
Well, it's actually really exciting because you get to write stream of consciousness lines that Carrie will dig out every little digression and find the sort of hairpin turns of that character's brain. So you can sort of let yourself go when you're writing and just know that she's going to dig out all the fun of it. Every contradiction, every little bit of observation about something that you say, that's interesting, put it in, and you just get to take the ride with Elsbeth's brain. Also, I try to get the scripts to Carrie as early as possible because she's so good about digging in and figuring out exactly when her character knows, what she's trying to figure out, because that's really what you're watching in every episode, is you're sort of watching her put it together. And one of the things that's so great about her is that you can see the gears turning in her head as she goes.
Yeah, and that's the magic that I still to this day am not quite sure how she quite does it, but I will see a slight change in her face, knowing that Elspeth is already picking up on something that's going on in the room. That's really, really hard, I think, to get right. So
Yeah,
huge props.
and that is something that we make sure that we mark, you know, not that you wouldn't find them anyway, but every time that there's a clue that sort of is buried or just passes by, we make sure it'll say, you know, Elsbeth clocks this or something like that. So we know that we're marking it for story.
So, given that Elsbeth is so eccentric, and I would say on the spectrum, she's very unfiltered, and she's also a little bit, she's ditzy and she comes across as kind of carefree, even though she's really not at all. Is that quite freeing to write for, or is that something that you always have to be to ensure that you have to kind of keep the guardrails around it?
It's something that we're always checking. You know, there is a danger of a character like that being too much and
Yeah.
just getting annoying. I've always said that it's like we're taking a character that was a side dish and we're putting her at the center of the plate. So you know, we allow ourselves sometimes to go a little too far, but we know that always when we get into editing, we can say, nah, it's feeling too much. And you know, it's you never know, there's never a clear answer. You just have to feel it out as you go. And I think the good thing is that Carrie's such an honest actress. You know, she knows how to play everything real for Elsbeth, at least. So it never feels like we're just doing, you know, silly shtick.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because I sometimes wonder, I feel like it's just always on point. And I just sometimes wonder, I wonder if this episode they went really far with this and she did get really annoying and frustrating and got in the way of the story. And it's really good how you're always able to pare that back and just kind of, as we said earlier, chisel it down to what we need to get the story across and also to enjoy Carrie's performance. That's what we're tuning in for as well. We want to see her do her thing. And so, do you agree that it's a difficult process and it's probably one of the more challenging aspects of this role that you have on this show is to kind of rein it all in and to balance it out?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to be very clearly receptive to your own inner voice and your sense of taste of when something feels like it might be a little too much. And I have, you know, wonderful editors, and we're able to, you know, like we throw a lot of props in scenes because we don't know what Carrie will do. You know, like we had a scene at a bar, and I said, make sure the chairs swivel because you just don't know what she's going to do. Um, and sometimes it feels exactly right, and it's always great, but it's like you have a buffet and you have to pick. You don't want to eat too much. You just want to have just the right amount, and it's sometimes it's a matter of the shots and how much you put, you know, off camera and just get a glimpse of things. A lot of the fun things we do with her is that she's in the background, the back of the frame, doing her thing. You know, tone is the hardest thing to describe, but it's like the, you know, the old Supreme Court definition of pornography. You know it when you see it.
It's so true. And I love the buffet exactly because you don't want to fill up on bread. You want to make sure you have enough room for the dessert, right? And
Yeah.
it's a process, and you want to make it right. How do you all come up with these crimes at the center of each episode? Are they ripped from headlines? Are they just things that you're pulling out of the air? Are there any guiding principles to how off the wall they can be?
Well, in the first season, we ended up doing 9 new episodes, and we actually picked our plots all at the beginning of the process. We start with uh, different worlds or slices of New York life, usually moneyed New York life, and society, and pick a setting. A few of them, sometimes a story will be generated by an interesting way to kill someone, or it'll be generated by a cool idea for a character. I wouldn't say they're ripped from the headlines, you know, in the way that we used to do stuff, you know, on Good Fight sometimes or on some Law and Order shows, but they are inspired by things that happen in the world and to the writers. I like to keep the writers' room very open to bring in anything that just interests them or something they experience, because you never know what's going to lead somewhere that seems exciting. Yeah.
And so does that mean that you foster an environment where people are really free and open to throw out the ideas, knowing that they're not going to get shot down because there's no stupid idea?
Well, there are some stupid ideas. No,
There are
but
some dumb ones.
No, but a stupid idea can often lead to, a great idea. I'm kidding. There are no stupid ideas. Yes, look, the writer's room should feel like a great dinner party with all interesting people. And one of the things I learned a lot working with Robert and Michelle is, Robert was always paying attention to what gets the room a little bit crazy. That's what you have to write toward. Whether it causes either an argument or people just finding something really funny and really interesting. You have to just keep your antennae to see what is going to be interesting and surprising in this group. And chances are, if this group finds it fascinating and interesting and worth exploring, then it'll entertain an audience too.
Wow, yeah. Look, everyone who hasn't seen Elsbeth yet, get onto it. It's so entertaining. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate your insight.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.